Have you ever been truly alone on a snowy night? I mean, completely, utterly alone. The world outside is painted in shades of white and deep, inky black. The only sounds are the ones you make. The soft thump of your own heart. The quiet sigh of your breath fogging the air before you. Everything else is swallowed by the snow. It muffles the world, creating a silence so profound, so heavy, that it feels like you are the last person left alive. It's a beautiful kind of quiet, a peaceful kind of isolation, until it isn't. Imagine yourself there, right now. You are safe inside your home. A blizzard has been raging for hours, but now it begins to calm. The wind's howl softens to a low, mournful whisper. The streetlights cast long, eerie shadows that dance and shift with the falling flakes. It is in these moments of profound stillness that our minds begin to play tricks on us. The silence stretches, and you start to hear things that aren't there. A floorboard creaks upstairs. Was it just the house settling in the cold? The wind picks up again for a moment, and it sounds almost like a voice, a faint murmur just beyond the glass. But then a new thought creeps into your mind, cold and sharp as an icicle. What if you aren't alone? The feeling starts small, a little prickle on the back of your neck, the sudden, unshakable sensation that you are being watched. You scan the yard, the street, the dark line of trees at the edge of your property. There's nothing there. The stories you are about to hear are not born from imagination. They come from real people, from real nights just like this one. These are experiences from the frozen highways of Finland, the remote mountain lodges of Japan, the silent snowbound cabins of Canada. So turn down the lights. Let the sound of the wind be your only companion. These are the horrors that wait in the white. Our first story takes us to the vast, empty landscapes of northern Finland, to a man named Akseli, a sales representative who spent his life on the road. He knew these highways like the back of his hand, but he had never seen a snowstorm quite like this one. The world beyond his windshield had simply vanished. The radio had faded to static, only the hypnotic rhythm of the wipers and the roar of the wind. He checked his GPS. No signal. He was in a dead zone, a vast stretch of forest, still miles from the nearest sign of civilization. Finally, the decision was made for him. With a sickening lurch, the car slid sideways, tires spinning. He'd veered into a deep snowdrift. He cut the engine. A sudden, deafening silence descended. He was stranded, completely and utterly alone. Or so he thought. Akseli sat in the profound silence for a long time, his training for winter emergencies kicking in. Stay with the vehicle. Conserve fuel. It was during the second hour of his wait, as the engine fell silent once more, that he saw it. Through the chaos of swirling snow, far off to his right, a light flickered. A cabin, a small house. Someone lived out here. Hope, sharp and sudden, pierced through his mounting despair. Walking there in this blizzard would be suicide. No, the only logical choice was to stay put. He could last until morning. But as the hours crawled by, the light began to feel less like a comfort and more like a strange, silent observer. He started to feel an unsettling connection to it, as if the person inside that distant cabin knew he was there, as if they were watching him back. It was just after 3 a.m. As the heater's fan whirred to a stop, the silence that rushed in was broken by a new sound, a soft, rhythmic crunching. It was unmistakably the sound of footsteps in deep snow. He wiped the condensation from the driver's side window and peered out into the impenetrable gloom. But there was nothing. The crunching sound continued, slow and deliberate, moving along the side of his car. Then, just as it seemed the person would reach his window, the sound stopped. Akseli waited, his body rigid with tension. He couldn't stand it any longer. Taking a steadying breath, he flicked on his headlights. The snow in front of him was pristine. There was no one there. There were no footprints. Nothing. He killed the lights, his mind reeling. Whatever had been outside his car, it hadn't left. It was just standing there, somewhere in the darkness, waiting. As the first, faint gray light of dawn began to break, the blizzard finally started to subside. He had survived the night. He looked towards the woods where the cabin light had been. He had to get to that cabin. The trek was grueling. As he got closer, a sense of unease began to grow. The cabin looked wrong. This was a ruin. There was no furniture, there was no fireplace, there was nothing that could have possibly created a light. It was impossible. The warm, hopeful light had come from this dead, empty place. It hadn't been a sign of help. It had been a lure. It was then that he saw them. One set, a single line of deep impressions. The other, smaller, frantic, clawed, like something dragged and struggling. He suddenly understood. The walker that left no tracks had been circling his car. The cabin light was a signal, telling something else that he was there. He was caught between a hunter and its prey. He was never, ever alone. Our second story takes us to the snow-capped mountains of Honshu, Japan. Here, a young atmospheric researcher named Kenji was stationed for the winter. He was there to study weather patterns, and the mountain was about to give him a storm that would defy all his scientific understanding. The power lines surrendered quickly. The emergency generator kicked in, but the silence that followed felt heavy and deeply unnerving. He watched the storm rage, a beautiful and terrifying display. But some of the sounds, they didn't sound like wind. They sounded lower, more guttural. He felt exposed in his small bubble of light. He checked the locks, a pointless but reassuring ritual. Nothing could get in. He pressed his ear against the cold glass. The sound that met his ear was no wind. It was a soft, sibilant hissing. He was jolted awake by a sudden change in the atmosphere. It was the cold, a biting, invasive cold that had seeped into the very bones of the lodge. The cold was strongest near the back of the lodge. The small window at the top of the wall, a window he was certain he had locked, was wide open. It was impossible for the wind to have blown it open. He had to close it. He had to seal the lodge again. He was safe again. The lodge was sealed, but a terrifying new thought took root. What if it had done so from the inside? He reached out to wipe a small circle clear. As his fingers touched the cold glass, he froze. There, perfectly preserved in the delicate ice crystals, was a handprint. It was a small handprint, the size of a child's. The window was on the second floor. There was no balcony, no ledge. It was an absolute impossibility. His scientific mind was crumbling. He was locked inside with something he could not comprehend. Then came the sound. It was not from outside. It was from directly above his head. A soft, scraping sound. The scraping sound continued, moving with him as if tracking his position. He would rather face the blizzard than stay inside for one more second. A soft, wet, dripping sound. Through the thin cracks, a dark, viscous liquid was beginning to seep through. It wasn't water. Kenji threw the door open and plunged into the white hell of the blizzard. He ran, fueled by pure animal terror. The official report: psychotic break from prolonged isolation. But Kenji knows the truth. Whatever was in the attic, the thing with the child's hand, it never left the lodge. It's still there, waiting for the next storm, and the next person trapped alone. Our final story takes us to the vast, frozen wilderness of Ontario, Canada, to a family seeking refuge from the city. The Miller family had rented a secluded cabin. It was meant to be an idyllic escape. For 3 days, it was perfect. On the 4th day, the weather turned. A major snowstorm, the stuff of local legend, was rolling in. The children, initially excited, were now growing restless. Sarah, trying to lift their spirits, suggested a game.
Daddy, come see! Someone played my game! A A few minutes later, Lily came running back into the living room, her eyes wide with excitement. "Daddy, come see! Someone played my game!"
There, next to her own small, shaky drawing of a flower, was another drawing. It was a face, a simple, smiley face. "No," she said. "I was here the whole time. Someone drew it from outside." The smile, it didn't look happy. It looked hungry. He tried to put it out of his mind, but his gaze kept drifting back towards the kitchen. Later that evening, Mark felt a sudden, chilling draft. It was sharp and bitingly cold. The heavy wooden back door, the one he had bolted and locked himself, was standing slightly ajar. The bolt hadn't been pushed open. It had been slid back. Someone, or something, had opened the door from the inside. For a split second, the swirling snow parted. Standing at the dark tree line was a figure. It was the same smile that had been drawn on the window. The snow swirled again, and when it cleared, the figure was gone. He finally understood. It had been watching them the whole time.
When the sun finally rose, the world was silent. Mark, exhausted, woke Sarah. "Pack, we're leaving, now."
"Where's Lily?" he whispered. They assumed she was with him. A frantic search began. She was gone.
The back porch was a perfect, undisturbed blanket, except for one set of tracks. A single small set of footprints, Lily's.
They headed straight for the dark tree line. Mark plunged into the snow, following them. "Lily!" he screamed.
The tracks went about 50 yards. Then they just stopped, as if she had been plucked into the sky. The snow was pristine. It had taken her, leaving no trace. The snow hides everything, even the things you love most. 3 stories. 3 snowy nights. Each story began with a deceptive piece of falling snow, but the silence it brings is not empty. It is watchful. The snow is a canvas, but it is also a veil. It covers the familiar world, but it reveals something else. Something that walks in the spaces between the flakes. The next time the snow begins to fall, you will remember. When the wind howls and sounds like a whisper just for you, you will think of the voices in the Japanese mountains. When you see a single, unexplained light flicker in the distance, you will remember the lure of the Finnish cabin. When your child tells you they saw a face in the window, you will remember the smiling thing in the Canadian woods. They wait patiently in the swirling white, just beyond the reach of your light. They are watching you, right now. Snow hides everything,